we'll start this talk. Like, I just wanted to give you something related to the fundamental of electrospinning, and the talk will like how we can make the nanofibers by nanofibers non-moving by using the electrospinning machine. Then after the fundamental, we will discuss about the how we can use this particular nanofiber in the biomedical application. The major biomedical application which I will cover today is the wound dressing application or tissue engineering application. The tissue engineering application mainly covers the skin tissue engineering application. So it's a part of the wound dressing material. So with this, I will start my like what is electrospinning. I will say that electrospinning is a tool for making the nanofibrous non-woven structures. So first of all, we can look at what is nanofiber and how the non-woven structure will look like with the help of the nanofibers. So we can define the nanofibers like a fiber diameter less than 1000 nanometer. This is a general definition for the nanofibers, and if we will talk about the nanomaterial, we used to have the word that the nanomaterial is a dimension less than 100 nanometer. But in case of the nanofiber, we have the diameter if less than 500 meter. Nowadays, people are saying that this will come under the category of the nanofibers. So if when we want to compare this nanofiber with our human hair, then you can see that the single human hair has such a larger diameter as compared to the nanofiber. So with this particular picture, you can have the idea how nanofibers looks like. With our naked eye or normal eye, we cannot see these fibers. So we have to have the specialized instrument to look at these fibers, and the major instrument which we use to look at these fibers is the scanning electron microscopy. So non-woven structure, if we can say that the structure formed by entangling fibers or filament mechanically, thermally or chemically. So this is like non-woven structure. So whenever we are making the nanofibers using the electrospinning machine, we can get the non-woven kind of structure. Here, this is a picture of the non-woven structure where all the fibers are entangled with each other. The properties of nanofibrous non-woven structure, if we can compare with the other non-woven structures, they have the very, very large surface area because of the size. The diameter of the fiber is very less. So we have the very large surface area. The porosity is also very high. The entanglement, if you can see that large pores are present, so very high porosity material is there. That the size of the pore is very small, so we can have that like bacterial filtration we can easily do, that the size of the bacteria is less than micron size, and that particular bacteria size we can easily filter by using the non-wovens, and they have a lot of flexibility, so we can put it in these in any kind of form, so we can make the good products out of these nanofibrous non-woven structures. And there are a large number of applications for the nanofibrous non-woven structures like filtration, protective clothing, nanosensor, tissue engineering, scaffold, drug delivery vehicle, and optoelectronics applications. So let us look at what is the electrospinning. We will look at the fundamental of electrospinning. This is a fiber production method which uses the high potential electrical field. So a method, or we can say a solution spinning method, where we can make some dope solutions, and through dope solution, if we can apply some kind of electric field, we can make the nanofibers by using the electrospinning. And the major advantage of this particular process is that it is applicable for the wide range of synthetic and natural polymers. This is the general schematic diagram for the electrospinning machine. It's a simple 4-5 systems are there, and we can manufacture electrospinning unit. Like the major part is the syringe, where we can put the polymer solution, and the syringe head is work as a spinneret. We have the high voltage supply system, and we should have one collector so that the fiber can collect over the surface of the collector plate. So the schematic diagram for the electrospinning machine, it has a 4 major component. The first component is the syringe, where we can have the polymer solution. Then there is a pump which can force the polymeric solution to the needle of the syringe, and that needle of the syringe is what like as a spinneret for this particular production of the nanofibers. Then we have the second component of this third component of this particular electrospinning machine is the collector, and collector can be in a plate form or can be a roller form depending on the type of the machine. And the major component of this particular machine is the voltage supply. So we can supply some high voltage between the spinneret and the collector, and we will pump the polymer solution. Then when we are pumping the polymer solution, application of the high voltage, it will generate the nanofiber. Now we can look at how the fiber will generate. So this particular portion I have taken, that is a upper portion or portion of the upper part of the needle or the spinneret, which we are showing here in this. Then when we are pumping the any kind of dope solution to the this needle, there is a, because of the polymer solution surface tension, it will form a droplet over the surface of the needle. And then we apply some kind of the voltage by using the high voltage machine. So once we will apply the voltage, suppose we have given the positive side charge towards the needle side, and negative charge we can apply onto the collector, and that collector is connected with the ground. Now once we are keep on increasing this charge, what will happen, that there is a electrostatic repulsion counteract the surface tension. So what happens, this charge will when increase, whatever the surface tension is generated due to the polymer solution, that will counteract, and it will form a cone shape. That cone shape was initially studied by the Taylor, and that's why this cone is known as a Taylor cone. And once this Taylor cone is formed, then the further we can keep on increasing the charge, then there is a jet formation takes place from the polymeric solution, and then this jet will spread, and then this fiber, due to some kind of whipping action and the instability, this fiber will deposit on the surface on the collector plate. So we have the base, then there is a formation of the jet, then this jet will spray, and the fiber is collected on the collector plate. And we will get, this is the form of the nanofibers where we can collect over the surface of the plate. And if you can look at these particular fibers with the naked eye, we cannot see these fibers. So we have to have this specialized instrument to see the fiber diameters, and the instrument which is used to look at this diameter is known as the scanning electron microscopy. And this is the particular picture of the scanning electron microscope, where we can see all the nanofibers structures. And you can see this is a zigzag form or crisscross form of the nanofibers is deposited on the surface of the collector plate. This is the electrospinning machine which we have in our laboratory, fiber technology laboratory in DTU. So here we have the two collector systems, like we have the plate collector system, we also have the drum collector system. We have two kind of jets, like if you want to spun core sheet kind of fiber or single fiber, nanofiber, we can spun by using this particular machine. The maximum voltage we have the 30 kilovolt. Now when we are spinning the fibers, there are some fundamental process parameters which we have to look at, that what kind of polymers we can have. So there are some kind of material parameters which we have to look at. We have to look at the processing parameter as well as the ambient conditions. These are the three major segments which we have to optimize when we want to develop the electrospun material. So in case of the material parameter, first thing is like chemical composition. Can we spun all the polymers by using the electrospinning process? Almost maximum number of polymers we can spun by using the electrospinning process, but what we have to look at the right kind of the solvent system. Or we can go with the melt spun. Nowadays people are using the melt spun kind of electrospinning. So the polymer which we cannot easily dissolve or be in the in solvent, they people prefer for the melt electrospinning. Here my talk is focused on the solution kind of electrospinning machine. So second parameter, polymer molecular weight. Definitely polymer molecular weight should be high so that we can attain a good viscosity and concentration. And based on the polymer concentration and viscosity, these three parameters are interlinked, like polymer molecular weight, polymer concentration, and solution viscosity. One parameter, if we can change one parameter, we have to change these two parameters. Then the next parameter is the solution conductivity. If the polymer solution is conductive, it will favor the electrospinning process, but too high conductivity is not favor the electrode. That time there is a electrospraying process will take place. Once we will decide that which polymer we have to work on, then and we decide the polymer concentration, then we have to work on the processing parameters within the electrospinning machine, like how much we can apply the electric field, what is the distance between the electrode and the ground distance, solution flow rate, and the movement of the collector. All these parameters will affect the final diameter of the fibers. I'll take up all these parameters and I'll show you some of the examples related to each parameter, how it will affect the fiber diameter or what we will get while running the electrospinning machine using when we vary these parameters. Then ambient condition, temperature. Temperature has a direct effect on the concentration of the polymer solution. If we can keep on increasing the temperature, polymer concentration will reduce. So this will directly affect temperature condition. Humidity is also affecting the processing of the polymeric solutions. So let us take the one by one the parameters. So the first parameter, I'm taking the effect of voltage. How the voltage will affect? If you can see that this particular study we have done, that we have taken the sericin and PVA nanofiber. We have prepared the sericin PVA nanofibrous mats by using the electrospinning machine, and we have varied the voltage from 18 kilovolt to 27 kilovolt. So initially when we have processed it at a lower voltage, then we have got some kind of beaded kind of structure. We have got the fibrous structure, but we have some beads present on the fiber structure. And once we can keep on increasing this voltage, we have found that there is a bead-free fibrous structure. If you can look at the diameter of the fiber, initially when we have the beaded kind of structure, the diameter was like 100 nanometer diameter somewhere, but the beaded structure is not required. We require a complete bead-free kind of structure. So when further we have increased the diameter, increased the voltage, then the diameter of the fiber initially increases. Then at a 27.5 kilovolt, when very high voltage is there, then we have achieved a good diameter, like 160 nanometer diameter fiber. This is because when we are giving the high voltage supply, it will stretch the polymer within the from the spinneret to the collector plate, and by stretching the fiber, more voltage is there. There is more stretching of the polymeric material, and we got the lower diameter. This is another kind of parameter, like effect of distance. Like what is the distance between the collector and the ground, collector and the spinneret. So if we can look at the collector and the spinneret, here we have the samples like Initially, we have kept the distance very small, 3 centimeter, then when increased to 6 centimeter, and then 8 centimeter. So what happens in the when we have this very small distance between the collector and the needle, there is a beaded kind of or spraying is there. But when we have kept a distance very little higher, then we have got the weak-free kind of fibrous structure. This is because when the polymer solution is coming out from the syringe tip, and then when it will reaches to the ground, it requires a sufficient distance, sufficient time to evaporate the solvent. So we have to keep the distance in such a way that solvent should evaporate in the total flight time. Then the parameter like effect of polymer concentration. So if we have the low concentration, like this particular slide, we are showing that we are taking some of the Munga fibroin nanofibers net, and we have processed it at a different polymeric concentration like 5%, 7%, and 10%. At low concentration, we found that there is a complete electrospraying. We are not getting any kind of nanofiber, but at 7% concentration, we found that there is some kind of bead structure. And when we have the 10% concentration, we have got some kind of network kind of a structure like a fibrous network structures. So as we can keep on increasing the concentration, we have found that there is we are getting the good fibrous structure. So one point is clear from this particular slide, that we need some kind of threshold kind of concentration to process the polymer and to make the fiber. So that's why, because initially when there is polymer concentration is high, there is more cohesion between the polymeric chains. Once we have the more cohesion between the polymer chains, so this particular concentration is also correlated with the molecular weight of the polymer. Higher the molecular weight, they have the more cohesion, so we can have the they have the good tendency to form the nanofibers. So here in this particular case, we found that the 10% concentration is a good concentration where we can make the fibers. This is another slide where we have processed the tussor fibroin nanofibers met, and again we have taken the different concentration 5, 7, and 10%. So at lower concentration, we were not able to form the fibers, but at higher concentration 10%, we will get the good fibrous structures. Then the same particular fiber, then 10% fiber, we have taken up concentration and then stretch it at a higher voltage. We have got a good fibers with the diameter ranging from 125 nanometers. Same, that the effect of voltage on that particular Munga fiber with the 10% concentration. When we keep on increasing at that 10% concentration, we keep on increasing the voltage, we have got a very small diameter fibers around 120 nanometers. So it is a like combination effect. Initially, one parameter you have to take up. Like initially, we have taken the concentration as a one parameter. Fix that concentration, we got some kind of a structure, then we have keep on increasing the voltage and we can get the required diameter or good diameter where we can use these particular fibers for some kind of applications depending. I'm showing you here something that when we are comparing these particular nanofibers met and with respect to the film, you will find that these fibers has a good tensile property as well as stretchability or flexibility as compared to the film when we produce with the same material. Then another parameter which will affect the processing, that is ionic conductivity of the solution. If we can change the process, like here we developed some 3D self-assembled nanofibrous construct for tissue engineering application. What we have done, we have changed the little bit the solution parameter. So initially what whatever the fibers we have shown you here, that we have dissolved in the ionic liquids. That particular silk fibrin we have dissolved in the ionic liquid. But in this particular case, what we have changed, that we have changed, we first dissolve this silk in the ionic liquid, and then we remove that ionic liquid, and then whatever the silk remain, that silk we have redissolved in the formic acid and calcium chloride solution. So what happened when we are redissolving it in the formic acid and calcium chloride solution, this calcium chloride gives me some kind of ionic conductivity to the polymer solution. So you can see whatever the fiber is generated here, in this case you can see the photograph that they are aligned in one direction. So this is like the beauty of this particular, like if we can have some kind of ionic conductivity, then they will produce the nano web structures which can assemble themselves. So here in this case, we have got that ionic conductivity has a good effect, and we can have this 3D kind of a structure we can generate by using the electrospinning process. And of course, the silk structure is also the ionically conductive structure, so that has a major advantage in this particular case, along with the what solvent we are using, or what kind of low molecular weight salts we are using, which are giving the ionic conductivity to the solution. What we have observed that when we are working with these particular polymers, if we have the blends, then those blends will also generate the different kind of structure. So here, this particular slide, I'm showing you that we have the tussar fiber and the tussar polymer fibrin. We have blended it with the PVA, and when we have done this electrospinning, they have the good ionic conductivity, and with that ionic conductivity, we have got the web kind of structures. With so that tussar and silk, when we are combining, we are making the blends, we are getting the 3D nano web kind of structures using the electrospinning. So ionic conductivity as well as the blend ratio will affect the overall structure in case of the electrospin fibers. So this is all about the how the electrospinning process is taking place, what kind of the process parameter. Now we will look at something related to the wound. Wound we will define as a traumatic injury to the skin, break in the epithelial integrity of the skin, and may be accompanied by disruption of the structure and function of underlying normal tissues. So this is a general definition of the wound, and based on the duration, we have the different types of wounds. Like one we call as acute wound. An acute wound is an injury to skin that occurs suddenly rather than over time. It heals at a predictable and expected rate according to the normal wound healing process. And there is another defined wound that we call as a chronic wound, which develops when the acute wound fails, or it will require a lot of time, and expected time of wound healing is not normal. It requires a week, like for example, ulcer, burn wounds, or deep wounds. Here, this is a type of wound, like we can get a wound like from the abrasion, contusion, incision, laceration, punches. So there are a number of defined wounds by the doctors, and we are working like whatever the tissue construct we are making or the wound dressing we are designing, that depend on the what kind of situation is there in the wound. So whatever the next talk I'm giving that majorly on the acute kind of wounds. To understand first we have seen the types of wound. Let us understand how the wound healing process takes place. So it is a biological process that restores tissue continuously after the injury. It is a combination of physical, chemical, cellular event that restores the wounded tissue or replace it with the collagen, which may start immediately after injury incident. We have seen from our childhood that if there is any cut or some kind of wound happen in our skin, it can repair the wound, start itself repairing it. So it's a combination of some kind of cellular processes, some kind of physical processes taking place. These are the four major processes which happens when in the wound healing process. Like initially, when there is a cut, there is a bleeding will take place when there is a wound, and there is initial blood clot takes place. Then there is some kind of inflammation. Then there is a proliferation and remodeling. So here, when this particular proliferation takes place, there is a fibroblast which is present on the skin that will form on the surface of the wound, and it will close the wound, and we have the finally fresh healed epidermis. Initially 3-5 days are the lag phase of the wound healing because inflammation and numbness predominate in this particular duration. Healing is generally influenced by the host factor, wound characteristics, and other external. So some people have a very fast healing, some people have a different slow healing. So it is completely dependent on the particular person or the host factor. There is a concept for the wound healing. There is initially, whenever we have the wound, we can leave it open. Then there was a concept has come up that we can do wound healing better wound healing can be done in the moist environment, because in the moist environment it will activate the growth factors. Activity of the surface proteolytic enzyme is also very fast in case of when we have the moist kind of wound healing process. Surface oxygen delivery is also fast and more effective nutrient delivery. So whenever if we have a wound and we can open it, we don't cover it, the healing of the wound takes place at a larger time. But when we have the wound, if we can cover it some with the moist kind of environment, then this particular wound healing process or the cell growth process is fast. So there are trends that we are going when we have a deep acute wound, we will go for the moist kind of dressing material. Now, how much moist is required? So there is a kind of balance is required for the moisture balance in the wound healing process. Insufficient moisture is exposed wound tissue, causes desiccation and cell death, and prevent the cell migration and matrix deposits. Moisture increases. If moisture is present, then it will increase the reepithelializations by 30 to 50%. Moisture also increase the collagen synthesis by 50%. Rate of epithelialization with moisture 2 to 5 times faster. So it always preferred we have the moist kind of healing environment. Marked decrease in the wound surface fluid loss. But if we have the excessive moisture due to the exudate, inhibits the cell proliferation and breakdown of the matrix component. So there is always a balance of the moisture at the wound bed, and we have to choose appropriate kind of dressing material which can give the moisture balance. So now if we can talk about, so when we have the wound, we generally have the dressing material. So what kind of the functions of these dressing materials are? Like it provides the mechanical and bacterial protection, maintain the moist environment at the wound or dressing interface, allow gases and fluid exchange, remain non-adherent to the wound, non-toxic, non-allergic, it should be non-sanitized and absorb the exudates. These are the major functions we want from the any wound dressing material. And we can classify this wound dressing material in the 4 major classification like dry, moist, medicated, and skin substitutes. So under the dry kind of dressing, we have the gauze, or which is generally we found in our household. Then there is a variety which is a moist kind of the dressing material. Under this category, we have the hydrogel kind of dressing material, hydrochloride or composite kind of dressing materials. This is a medicative kind of dressing which is giving some kind of active role in the wound healing process, or they are like antimicrobial kind of dressing or interactive kind of dressing. So these have some kind of agents which can give the faster healing process to the wound. Then we have the skin substitute. These are the materials which helps the closer the function as a skin to promote the healing. So some of the allograft, autograft or skin substitute, or we can say the tissue engineering material which are used as a skin substitute. So further my talk is based on the antimicrobial dressing or the skin substitute which we have developed in our labs. So first, since I have introduced one term, skin tissue engineering. What is skin tissue engineering? Like this is a particular process where we have the patient will isolate the cells from the patient. Like skin cells, if we can say, there are three kinds of skin cells we can take from the patient, like keratinocytes, fibroblasts, or the stem cells. Then these cells, whatever the cells we have taken from the patient outside, we can seed these cells on the scaffold. That scaffold we can prepare by using the electrospun non-woven nanostructures and seed those cells on this scaffold, and that scaffold we can say that is scaffold is a tissue engineering skin. Now this tissue engineering skin we can transfer to the patient so that it will promote more healing or faster healing to the patient. This particular skin tissue engineering material we are generally used for the acute wounds or the burn wounds or ulcer wounds where the process of healing is very, very slow. This is another diagram, like we can take the different kind of the cells, keratinocytes, fibroblasts or protein cells, and we'll put it on the nanofibrous non-woven structure. On these cells we will initially grow in the lab, and those cells which grow and that we will transfer to the wound site. So if we have the normal wound dressing material and this is the very deep wound bed, then that particular wound dressing, it will take a lot of time to heal this particular wound. But if we have the skin tissue engineering material over which we have already grown cells, and then this particular material we will transfer over the wound bed, it has a faster growth and we can have the wound healing in a very small time. So electrospun nanofiber structures as a dressing material or skin tissue engineering material. Why these materials are very promising? Because they mimic the fibrous structure of native skin, extracellular matrix, offer the ability to incorporate biological factors that promotes the skin regeneration and wound closure. With their microscopic pore size, have an additional advantage of acting to physically protect wounds from the infection while remaining permeable to oxygen and the moisture. So this is the major advantage of this particular material. We can also change the surface chemistry or morphology to grow the cell. Like we can add some kind of the material on these nanofibrous structures. They can help or promote the cell growth. And we can also add some kind of biological agent which we can control rate we can deliver on the wound site so that healing process will enhance. So number of polymers are there by which we can develop the wound dressing materials. All natural polymers, synthetic polymers like natural polymers, silk, collagen, alginate, chitosan, elastin. Within the synthetic polymers, people have tried like polylactic acid, polyglycolic acid, combinations of these particular polymers. From here onwards, I will talk about the silk-based skin tissue engineering material which we have developed in our lab. This is one material like Muga nanofibrous mesh we have developed from the, we have taken the Muga silk and electrospun material, and when we have tested the biological testing, like how the cells will grow, we found that this Muga nanofibrous mesh has a very good, within 5 days, the fibroblast cell L 929 has grown on the surface of the nanofibrous structure, and this particular nanofibrous structure has almost similar like the control. So very good growth of biological like skin cells we can grow over the surface of these non-woven structures. Then we can incorporate in this nanofibrous structure some kind of like drug. Here in this particular case, we have loaded the gentamicin drug, and you can see that when gentamicin drug is loaded, and within 24 hours that releases and it forms the good zone of inhibition. That means it kills the E. coli and Ascaris bacteria within 24 hours. So we have seen the release, how the release behavior is there, and we have seen the cumulative release behavior of these particular drugs from the nanofibrous web is like sticky and kind of diffusion. We have also developed the Tussar nanofibrous met using the electrospinning process. Here in this particular Tussar nanofibrous met, we have also added the silver nanoparticles. These silver nanoparticles we have synthesized using the Parthium wheat. Once these nanoparticles we have synthesized, you can see that beautiful fibers which is coated with the silver nanoparticles, and these particular fibers are inherent antibacterial in nature. So with this kind of material we can use as a tissue engineering material as well as antimicrobial and nanofibrous material. You can see that these particular non-woven structure has very good antimicrobial activity. We got a very good zone of inhibition with respect to both the bacteria, E. coli and Ascaris. Then we have also developed these Tussar silk PVA blend nanofibrous mats. These mats are showing a very good results, that we have a very good growth factors for in terms of L929 fibroblast cells. So this is also one of the very good, we found that when we are blending the silk material with the PVA, they are also showing the promising result for the tissue engineering applications. Another I just wanted to talk, this is one more introduction. Like we have also developed the hydrogel nanofibrous mats for drug delivery. Like people are using the hydrogels as a dressing material, hydrogel films as a dressing material, and the major disadvantage of the hydrogel dressing when we are using in the film form, what happens, these films has a very less strength. So we want to develop some kind of the nanofibrous structure which has a strength and which also have the properties of hydrogel, which can easily deliver the drug material. So here we have developed the electrospun pH responsive hydrogel nanofibrous met using the electrospinning technique, and these are the pictures of the electrospun fibers. Then we have loaded this particular hydrogel nanofiber with the amoxicillin drug. It is released beautifully and shows the good zone of inhibition around the bacteria, and the drug release kinetics was very, very promising. That we found that it is following the PEPAS model, and the sticky and kind of diffusion we have found then when the drug is released from these nanofibrous hydrogel materials. I'd like to thank all the students who have worked on these projects. My special thanks to Mr. K. Sain Gautam, Dr. Chanmohan Srivastava, Ms. Preeti Gupta, and Ms. Radhika Batra, who are working on all these projects. And I'm also thankful to the funding agencies like DST, UGC, and CSI, Government of India, who has, they have given me opportunity that I can work on this particular area. And I'm thankful to Misty, all the participants here, patiently listening to me. Thank you so much.